Hey Photoshop friends, let's continue on with adjustment layers. And we're going to look at how to make something a different color and how to make colors pop more in Photoshop and Photopea. So let's take a look at our lady here who has the flowers in her hair and all around her. I guess, I don't know, those sunflowers? I guess they're not. Sunflowers are black in the middle, but it's okay. All right, so let's go ahead and zoom up on her. And what we're going to do is we're going to do some color pop, but we want to change the colors. Okay, so again, we can change the colors of everything, or we can change the colors of certain things. Now I'm going to not select something first because I want you to see what happens if you don't clipping this, and if you happen to not select something first, what it looks like. So all right, I'm going to click here on adjustment layer. We're going to add a hue saturation adjustment layer. Before I click that, let's take a minute to discuss what those words mean. Hue is like the actual color of something. Blue, red, etc. That's the hue of it. Saturation is how much of that color. Think in terms of a paintbrush. If you have a lot of paint on your brush, it's saturated. It's got a lot of red on it if it's a red paintbrush. Or if you've rinsed it out and now you just sort of have like the water and the leftover red in there and it's like pale pink, that's desaturated. Or if you get all of the color out of it, there's no color. That's completely desaturated. So hue and saturation are very important color terms to know. Hue is actually the actual color, like color will color. Saturation is how much of that color. So I'm going to click on hue saturation. My properties panel will appear. And notice that we have a slider for hue, and it looks like a rainbow. Now, because you drag to yellow doesn't mean your picture is going to turn yellow. It means it's going to mix it with yellow. So you're going to get a difference based on what you mix it with. For instance, if I pull this to the right, yellow and blue make green, right? So if I get over into the blue, those yellowish colors are going to turn green. Now, also notice my butterfly pictures are changing. And that's because I do not have that clip to just this layer. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now and create the clipping mask so that it isn't messing with my other pictures and it's only messing with this picture. But we have a further problem, and that is I just want it to be maybe one flower, one specific flower. So I don't want it to affect the entire layer. Now, with our black and white one on the other picture, that worked out okay because most of the picture was going to be in grayscale. But for this one, most of the picture is going to be normal. So this layer mask needs to have a black fill. Remember to invert the mask, it's Control I. Now, alternatively, I could have pre-selected a flower and then added the hue saturation. Okay, and that's what I'm going to do when I go over to Photopea in a second. But all I have to do now is paint, I'll zoom up, with a paintbrush in white, and it will paint in my green flower. Okay, and you just, work through and pick it and do it, right? Nothing real complicated about it. I'm not like being super specific here, but you can see. So if I zoom out now, we're going to have a green flower up there in her hair. But because this is non-destructive, I can click back on that icon again, and I can shift these colors, and I can go all kinds of different directions. So maybe I'm like, you know what, maybe a red, okay? So below this slider is the saturation slider. Remember I talked about saturation is like how much of that color. So if it's red, how much red? Let's zoom up on this again so we can take a look. If I go all the way up, it's going to be a mess. Like it's absolutely as hot red as it can be. And if I go all the way down, it's going to be gray because that's grayscale, right? So you can find kind of the middle. If you go up too much, you're going to start to blow out the details. So you have to be very careful about that. And then there is a lightness slider, so you can make it darker or lighter. If you make it lighter, it eventually turns white. Darker, it eventually turns black. And you can really see how bad my layer mask is here when I put it in black. Matter of fact, I'm going to leave it on that for a second and click on here and touch that up a bit so it doesn't look quite so bad. Okay, it's a little bit better. All right, now let's go back into there and put that lightness back to normal. There we go. We can kind of see it does look better now. All right, so that's basically hue saturation. Okay, now I'm going to go into Photopea and do the same thing, but this time I'm going to pre-select the item that I'm going to change the color of. So I'm right here. Make sure I'm on the right layer, this layer here, and I'm going to pre-select. I'll take, you could do maybe object selection, or you could do quick selection. Let's see if object selection did it pretty good right there. So I've got my object selection there, and then I'm going to do the same thing. Hit my new adjustment layer, hue saturation. Looks a little different, but basically the same thing. Hue, saturation, and lightness. So I can come here and mess with the hue until I get it to be, like say there's the red color I want. Again, you could go up with more red if you wanted to, or back that red off a little bit, whichever. I'm going to press Control D. Oh, no, I'm not going to press Control D. Well, I am. Okay, I'm going to press Control D because now I'm done with it. It's funny because in Photoshop, it automatically deselects when it adds the layer mask, and apparently not in this program. So anyway, there it is. Okay, now I can zoom out. All right, there we go. So there's the hue saturation layer. Now let's do, how can we make colors pop more? So let's do another one. Now, again, I need to clip this in. We do want to clipping mask these in so we know what they belong to. And it's probably not an awful idea to group these when you get done with them. Like this level and this black and white goes with this person. So maybe it'd be better for me to create a group and put all of those in there. I'll just call it black and white lips picture. And then those are all in their own little folder. And then I don't have to like keep looking at that constantly and dealing with all those arrows everywhere. So that's a way. All right, let's look at, let's pick another flower. Say this flower. I'll try to use my object selection. There's a shirt on the, oh, not on the right layer. There's a shirt right there, so it might get a little upset about that. Okay, no, it did okay. All right, so quick selection. If I was in Photoshop, I'd probably use object selection in here. Now I'm going to add a Vibrance adjustment layer. Vibrance is used to make your colors pop more. Basically, it does really increase the saturation, but it also lightens it up a little bit. So notice here as I pull it up, and it's kind of subtle. You know, it's not, I'm not really seeing much difference at all in here. But generally speaking, if you're trying, it may just be that this one's already turned up so much. If you're trying to adjust something to make it a little bit more colorful, you could use that color pop there. I'm going to try this with her lips because her lips are kind of dull. I'm not on my layer again. Try to use that object selection and I'm not on the layer, and that's a problem. Oh, that's kind of ugly, but it's okay. Let's try another Vibrance one here. So Vibrance. Let's see if we can pull that up. See how there we go? See the red is coming up better? Yeah, that's better. And then the saturation, we get a big difference here. So yeah, these are already so saturated with that yellow. I'm going to press Control D and then update this. I'm going to delete the other one. Okay. Oops. Did I delete the wrong one? I did, so that's fun. It's okay. I'm going to clipping mask this. Okay, there we go. All right, so I got a clipping mask in here. I'm going to click on my mask, paint in white to show that part. And there we go. And again, these are always adjustable. So when you have those layer masks for those adjustment layers, you just click on the adjustment and you can make those changes. All right, so now we got some nice red lips going on there. Let's go into Photoshop and do the same thing. This time again, I'm going to pre-select. So we'll pre-select her lips here. Make sure you're on the right layer or you won't be able to select well. Make sure I'm on plus here. I'm really not big enough. This is probably not going to be the world's best selection. But we can always touch it up, right? So it's fine. All right. So let's say that that's going to be okay for now. We're going to add our Vibrance. So click on the little moon button, Vibrance. And then, like I said, it automatically Control D's in Photoshop, but it doesn't in the other. I was underneath the hue saturation, so this one's automatically clipped in, but if yours isn't, be sure to clipping mask it in. And then there we go. We can increase the Vibrance, which lightens that up. So it makes it a little bit darker and better. And then we can increase that saturation. Yeah, there we go. All right. And let's look at that before and after. So there's before and after. Much different. And realistic because we actually can see all the details of the lips coming through. It's not like we just took a paintbrush and painted pink in there. Like we still have all of the lights and darks and all of the parts showing through properly. Okay, so there you go. That is how you can make something a different color and how you can make colors pop that are already there. So, hue saturation and Vibrance.